Beautiful, beautiful brothers and sisters. Welcoming you into this transmission, this personal story, this share, this uh, journey that has been moved through, and how it may have mirrors for you in your own journey, in your own mirroring through that of which I be, in the reflection of what I've come to understand and know as to the consciousness shifts within each of us as an individual and then as a collective. So, if you have not tuned into any of my videos before, my transmissions, any of my healing or consciousness communications, I am Geeia Ariati. I am of sound heart and sound mind, and I am the assigned oracle for the 144 and beyond. If you are receiving this, be conscious and aware of the energy and the signatures of the frequencies that move between the words. If you if you are a sensitive being, and that you may receive remembrances, energetic recalibration, rewiring through the mirroring of what I've come to hold within my energy signature, my auric field, and the energy that I hold. If there's aspects of your genetic coding, if there's aspects of your consciousness, or aspects of time space continuum that I've journeyed through my experience, they can activate through this communication channel. And so if your Kundalini starts to run, if you start to have moments of downloads or information streams coming through you, it's basically a mirroring of that what you hold within your consciousness. It allows for a vibrational resonance to come through and allow that to start to unfold within your own remembrance and your own cultivation. And so that is the beautiful thing about how we as mirrors are showing ourselves. And that is what this human experience is about. It is about coming to self realization through the mirrors of separation, to use separation as the gift that it is to provide a recognition of wholeness and oneness. And this concept is one that becomes more and more profound the more that you realize yourself. And there is no end point to this self realization journey whilst we remain in a separate form in creation itself. Until one is whole and returns to the creator of all things, in whatever that is, as I do not know, we are forever learning ourselves through different lens and different perspectives. And so I'm coming to you from the beautiful land of Phuket in Thailand after a 3 week, I want to use the word Nali because that's all I can really express for the lens of experience that I've come to. For me to move through such an initiation portal came as a surprise, right? Because we get used to a lens of being, we get used to comfort, we get used to an expression of ourselves in reality. And then something shifts and changes and disturbs our energy and our vibration and allows us to experience from a different lens, to see a greater recognition of self. And yeah, sorry. And sometimes that doesn't always happen in the way of what the human would like it to happen, in the way that is desired for the human being. So, how I want to start is actually sharing why I left Australia in the first place. What is it that actually brought me to the land of Bali and this guided expression and this journey? The message from my source guidance was to write a book. Yet, in the awareness I have now, the message to write a book and to be there in 3 months of presence and creation was the message that I needed to receive from my higher self to get me to leave my country. Now, had I have received the more accurate message around what was going to take place, I probably wouldn't have chosen that without more delay in time. I wouldn't have acted as fast as what was being guided to me, and I would have moved through more distortions to get there. But instead, I chose this end point of creation. So not only did I get guided to leave Australia to go to Bali to write a book, but I also started having very strong prophetic visions that had been leading up to this point for quite some time. You may have seen some of these prophetic visions or interpretations of channels, and the information there was around the tipping point of consciousness, the North and the South Pole flip, and the division and the two worlds concepts, and the different layers of what's to come, and is still, from what I can see, still on the trajectory of what we're creating as a collective group whole. I see this in my current reality, and there will be a further transmission when I meet my new land, which is what this transmission is also about, is talking around land and what land provides for us, so that it's more supportive in what I gift in the next 2 to 3 months of what you could expect for your own internal reality and what we are creating from the forefront of our consciousness. So, in that, there was guidance that Australia is not the safest land for me to be on, that the land of Australia has supported me to the point of what is the most vibrationally aligned to me as a being, and that the awareness was and is that Australia has a lot of GMO cloud seeding. There is large amounts of EMFs. There is a low collective consciousness through a large amount of Australia. There is a lot of entrapment programming and covert structures in place in regards to the governmental structures. And there is also the awareness that I've received the most from the land in coding that I have to receive at this point in my journey, and that there is not too much in that land left for me to receive, as it's supported me for the last 37 years. And so there has been this guidance to move on to Bali, in that Bali is one of the projected chakra systems for the new earth. And this shift for the chakra system to be one that sits in the Bali land is that it allows for individuals that have been going through and doing a lot of land and grid work, a cleaner, clear pathway for these grid lines to allow for the old positioning of the chakra point to move to the new positioning of the chakra point. And so, in the leaving of Australia, and the message and the guidance I had was that I had to leave in the acknowledgement that I may never return to Australian land, that I was to let go of every person and material thing, which was fine for me because I have already mastered the art of no attachment. But it was more the wanting to know why, the wanting to intellectualize, and also to do the more logical planning of leaving the country. I still have a home, a car, and different possessions that are there. And the guidance was leave it, it's not important. Go and let go of it like you may never see it again. Now, that guidance was, I guess, the release of the past version of the self in whatever that cycle had held. And it was also the awareness that sometimes we're asked to let go of things without any need to know why, need to have a return, need to justify why we're letting go, how we're letting go, because it opens up an opportunity of more time and space. So the message for me was not about it not being something that I would see again, but it was more of you have more energy and focus to be placed into more aligned places within your experience. And so when we receive these messages from spirit, we try to intellectualize them. We try to make sense of why they are being guided to us. So, why would you just ask me to let go of my house and my things? There must be X, Y, and Z. And your mind will gather up the data points. The data points that I had at the time were all the prophetic visions of land and different places going underwater. And so, my justification for letting go of all of my things was it would all flood and it would be demolished. And there was no point in spending time in that way, that it was just going to be destroyed anyway. Now, that may or may not happen. I'm completely unattached to that now, but at the time, my brain was trying to justify the guidance, try to question the guidance. And as spiritual beings, we are always being asked to ask more questions. But when you get to a point of source guidance and you're choosing to only be guided by that of God, source creator in every moment, the moment you question, you create a separation point and a tether point where there's a weakness rather than just going with the faith as to why you are being guided in that direction. And so there is a very gentle discernment point of when do I stop questioning and when do I just start allowing that guidance without any interpretation, without any justification, but knowing that that guidance in that moment provides the next opening of consciousness for my step forward. So this concept basically brought me to the land of Bali, in which I realized very quickly that I was not there to write a book, and that by the time I had uncloaked myself so that you could all see me, and that I was exposed, and I'm still continuing that uncloaking and that exposing of myself to the world at the right times, in the right structures and frameworks that is supportive to my human being and my human experience. There was a expansion in my message that was received, and there was a influx of individual beings that were wanting to receive through the lens of that which I have come to realize within myself. And so there was not space to write a book. There was space to support those around the world in this journey to the Great Awakening. With that, it was interesting because there was an attachment to why I had gone there, that I was guided to go there to write a book. So I already had created this vision of what that looked like. And I had to deconstruct this attachment to the forefront vision so that I was able to allow pure creation to guide the path even further. In that, there was an awareness that came through at such a strong rate that the time that I was in Bali was a lot of reconciliation of the different connections to the Hindu religion, a lot of timeline distortions around the Hindu religion, around connections to different uh, gods and ancestors of the land that have moved through our different layers of consciousness. And there was reconciliation points of different past timelines and structures of the earth, and also reclamations that were required for multiple beings. And what I want to share around this is that that was the reclamation that led me to the aspect of my next shift of I am consciousness. And when we start to journey with a blueprint of consciousness, when we start to journey with a deity or a god, and we feel the resonance of the I am with that, it's important for me to speak to this so that there's clarity, as I know that there's many beings that get confused by this. And so the land of Bali allowed me to remember my vessel, being that of a separate consciousness. It was until I merged with it and came into the I am. But my vessel's name was Delilah. She had her own 3 incarnations on this earth, where she was not only me in this incarnation, but she was Devi Pavati in another incarnation, and she was also Isis in another incarnation. So she held the codes as well as the bloodline from my mother and father's line and my ancestral line and my connections there, that held its own karmic memory, its own consciousness to be reconciled. Now, had I have not gone to Bali as an activation point, I would not have remembered through the cellular memory of the molecular structure of the earth, my connection to Devi Pavati, because me, being that of the spirit, did not journey that lifetime or incarnation. Devi Pavati had never come into my experience. I never resonated with Hinduism, Hindu culture, or any of the Hindu gods. It's never been something that I felt true and real for me. But my body had a different set of coding that had this information there. And so it was required to come up through the land's remembrance and initiation process. So, land of where we go, and if you are a traveler and a seeker, you are activating yourself all of the time into memory and realignment, because the Earth's molecular structure directly affects your molecular structure. And so, if there is parts of the Earth that hold memory and information, and you are on it, whether or not you cognitively remember, your cells do. And so that will allow for an alchemy process wherever you go, whatever it is that that land has in offering for you as to why you were drawn there. So, in this process of me recognizing my body's memory to Devi Pavati, I also had to alchemize and work through some of the Kali consciousness attachments that was still keeping me in a framework of eating meat as a blood sacrifice to feed her away, which is very interesting, right? Because the Hindu culture is that they give an offering at every morning onto the land, to keep the ancestors at bay and ask for protection and safety. And so what they do is they're actually giving them a gift to say, please look after me, please, no problems here. And there's also that's to specific ancestors, but then there's also specific offerings and gifts for guidance and love and protection, and as a thank you, as a gratitude. But this concept around religion, where you offer something to say, I've given you this, now please keep yourself from here, is one of those covert contracts that we have in the quantum field that happen in all layers of consciousness. They happen so regularly. And for me, I was not aware that I've been in a state of trying to eat vegan, or not trying. I have been eating mostly plant based for a period of time. And every 2 or 3 months, I had to have red meat. And it was like my justification of mind was my iron levels and protein is low. And so I need to have a steak for that reason. Now, on the other side of this, it actually wasn't that at all. It was that by that time, I'd starved off enough of the Kali consciousness that if I didn't feed it with a blood sacrifice, it would be invoked in me, because I hadn't healed that wound. I hadn't healed that aspect of my connection to her specifically, in the recognition that she was still at the effect of controlling me in a way that I hadn't recognized different contracts, connections, and aspects. And so, why I'm sharing this is that when you have a connection to a god, a goddess, a deity, or there's something that's showing up for you, you have a connection to them either through a contract, an oath, a vow, an agreement, through some past incarnation connection, or simply through their blueprint has information for you. So just because you receive connection to Isis, just because you receive connection to Osiris or any other being, it does not necessarily mean that you are that original consciousness. Because what we look at when we look at this from the zoomed out lens is that every single physical being is made up from one of the 12 original families. Each cell has some of the 12 original DNA. And then we have our ancestral memory that moves through time space continuum. We also then have whatever templates, codes, and connection points that we've brought through in this incarnation as a way to say, this deity, this God will have resonance to your path so you can see yourself through the eyes of that experience. And the only reason that we are moving through any of these expressions, these historical experiences, these events, these mirrored visions, these conversations, is to see the self, to mirror back who am I in my wholeness. And so what was really powerful about this journey in Bali was that recognition of, oh, okay, there is a connection here, and my kundalini. So I have been posting a little bit about kundalini activation, being a kundalini master, and my awareness around this process, that um, it wasn't something that I it wasn't something that I had gone to learn. It was something that I remembered through my cells. It was something that was invoked inside of my being in relation to not only Isis and her temple experiences, but through Devi Pravati. Now, Devi Pravati and her connection to Shakti, Shiva and Shakti energy, that is where my mastery, which was actually my body's mastery with sexual energy and creator energy, came forth into this experience, rather than from my spirit and my consciousness that was remembering who I am through the time space continuum of different mirrors of myself, as well as from my human lens. Because the vessel, the body, and the consciousness of the vessel was completely different to mine. And she brought in an extra level of mastery into this now experience that I have cultivated and integrated. Um, so not only did Bali provide this remembrance and this recognition, there is a awareness that the land of Bali is very much a heart-centered land. The people are from a place of the heart. They are very spiritual beings. And yes, there are pockets of high vibrational and low vibrational, but as a collective whole, most are sitting in this place of their heart center. So when you go there, your heart gets activated, realigned, recalibrated, and brought into a higher vibrational expression, or you will be brought up into all of your heartache and move through this aspect of where your heart's pain is so that you can alchemize it. And so we, as a collective of the bringers of change, were going through massive heart shifts. Crystalline hearts were being activated through the collective, different energies of loss of self, loss of source connection, points of desiring divine union. There was a period of recognizing that the loves and the relationships that we've created in the last history of the earth, in the karmic footprint, had not been supportive, had not been loving, have been covert, have been overt in their narcissistic traits, that polarizing relationships have been programmed into us as something that we thought was true and real because we decided to live a experience of recognizing self through the yin and yang concepts. And so that previous period, which is coming to a close, is yin and yang see themselves through each other. So I will be yin and you will be yang. And we will see ourselves to come into union by mirroring this back to each other. That has been an experience of suffering, turbulence, and disconnection. And union is the new timeline forward. And what happens is that union cannot happen until we merge our own yin and yang and dissolve the separation point of polarity, and we come into the alchemized unified self, or the essence, and then we start to create relationships of essence to essence. Whether that be healed or not, it's a shift of I am yin and you are yang, and we will come together and make wholeness. Instead, it is I am whole, whether all of me has met that wholeness, and you are whole, and we're going to come together and mirror each other in a wholeness lens of focus forward, which is where the new earth structures are being brought forward. And so this shift out of this construct, this paradigm, has been dissolving for many of us. And a part of my path there was to deconstruct my own distortion narratives around the patriarchal men and needing men as the love of my life to be of service to the earth. And that the men that I needed in my life needed to be of a polarizing expression, which was actually just repeating me into the same avoidant patterns of partners. Now, when you have an individual consciousness, or any consciousness, we're not going to put this in hierarchy, when you have any consciousness that recognizes something like this and they see through the veil of illusion and go, holy shit, wow, I didn't realize that I was sucked into a conditioned program that has ran every single relationship I've ever had, and it's not even real. And you step out of the distortion by clearing the core wounds, looking at the attachments, looking at the entanglements of consciousness that are created within your own field. What happens is an opening that gets released out into the collective energy field for others to see this aspect within themselves also. So when you see people saying, I was just thinking that, and you just wrote that, or I've been seeing this myself and you're now sharing it. It's because when one person sees, it allows for those energy pathways, those telepathic connections, those synapses to be received by all beings that are choosing to do this through their vibrational resonance. So we are all working through this together. It is not that one of us is more in the forefront than the other. It is that as each spark of consciousness is sent out, those get to grab it through their own lens of interpretation, or through their own consciousness that they've self recognized and realized. And then they interpret it through their own experience of how it's been, and they send that information out. And so we are effectively remembering and awakening together. It's not that one is doing it first. I am not doing it first. I may be a being that has come to a point of more self realization than most at this point on their journey. So I have a broader, more zoomed out, self realized expression of what this is and how it plays out through all layers and all dimensions. But I'm seeing it at the exact same time that you're seeing it. I'm just seeing it with a way that my brain has started to interpret it in a higher, mm, in a more uh, broader lens of perspective. So I no longer have the perspective lens of seeing things through the identity, but I have the perspective lens of being able to actually see from multiple lens of interpretation, because my consciousness has expanded to that level of receivership. So, in my journey through Bali, most of what I was going through on a personal journey was the deconstruction of the patriarchal construct, at the same time as allowing for Thoth's energy and his essence to initiate me into the energy signatures that were being provided for me to assist men to go through their own initiation journey into, and were currently at that time also deconstructing their false matrix paradigms around women in the polarizing opposite of what we are being to each other to see each other. And this experience was no different from the I to the them, because they were releasing the last, and I will continue to say 42,000 years. Everyone keeps saying, I don't know where you're getting that number from. Spirit, God, the fact that I was here at the creation of the earth, so I know. That's all I can say, and I'm not justifying it. But that macro cycle that is there, that was the creation of the earth from the very birthing point to the 11th of the 8th, 2024, that cycle is closing. And so every single one of us that was a part of that cycle. Now, I'm going to repeat that. Every single one of us that was a part of the 42,000 year cycle. So the original divine race, the Anunnaki, the creator beings of the earth, the Sumerian, Lemurian originals, the 12 families, whatever you would like to say, you are going through the completion of the karmic distortions if you are choosing. Those that are not choosing will not go through this closing cycle. And what happens with any cycle, with any portal, with any opportunity, once that cycle finishes, it is complete, it is gone. And what that means is that your choice points are very important. If it's important for you to step out of the old and create from the new, then you need to be aware of this. Just because you were here from the beginning doesn't mean you're going to go through the great awakening. And I will explain the Great Awakening in the video that is to come when I'm on the new supportive land to my being. And we haven't even got to Thailand yet. So this is going to be a nice long video. You may need to pause, go get a drink, take some breaths, ground it in. Anchor it, anchor it, anchor it, baby. So there are different pockets of consciousness. And I had a beautiful conversation with an amazing being today that was talking about this around there are pockets of consciousness where you have this town has this vibrational frequency. This town has this vibrational frequency. This town has this one. We know we go through little towns and we might have, a backcountry town that feels a certain way. We might have a city that has a certain lot of archetypal energies. We might have a beach town that's really high vibrational and in flow with spirit and laid back, right? So these towns are already the different pockets of consciousness that are there. But we are going through a point of further separation where those consciousness pockets are becoming more and more and more and more high vibrational in their expression, whilst also recognizing that they have had mixes of beings. So how I'm going to explain this for something like Bali is a really great example. So Bali has mostly a heart-centered expression, right? It's a beautiful heart-centered expression. But there are pockets of consciousness that go all the way down to, say, underworld consciousness or demonic consciousness. And there are higher vibrational points that are through the nature and through the mountains and through these different points that are more in your crown chakra energies. And so they balance each other out, but they come into this heart connection. So as an overall, it's a heart-centered expression. So anyone that is there in that point of land who stays there wants to be at a point of heart octave coherence. And that will become more and more a land of the heart, that those higher vibrational points will start to alchemize in, and the lower vibrational points will start to alchemize in. So you will not have as many highs and lows, but what happens is the resonance to the heart octave becomes more of a pocket of truth for that land. And so those that are of a lower vibrational frequency that are not choosing to align into that more aligned resonance elements will either leave the land in some form or they will rise and shift to be in it. Because how a bandwidth works is you can't be in a certain bandwidth unless you're choosing it for so long. It becomes too uncomfortable, whether you're higher or lower. You can only have so much gap. So if I, being the being that I am, the people that are here listening, your vibrational frequency is at enough of a bandwidth or a point of remembrance within your own spirit and consciousness evolution to listen to me, that you would even be here. Because anything that is beyond what I speak to, energetically or otherwise, your brain will glitch out and be like, I have no idea what you fucking just said. Like, sorry, sauce. Sorry, didn't mean to cough on you. Cleansing, clearing, and purifying my overt language when it's unnecessary to get a point across. And anywhere my throat chakra would like to express through force to be potent in truth. Cleansing, clearing, and purifying. And the attachment to speaking in volatility, rather than the softness of the essence of my nature, as a way to be heard in a distorted reality. Right. Alchemizing, synergizing, and harmonizing, reconnecting, rebalancing. Hey, currently going through throat chakra upgrades and higher frequencies of aligned octave to speak in the word of God. All right, where was I? So with bandwidth, you have, if your bandwidth, and I'll use some numbers as a way to assist. If you have a bandwidth that it's lowest vibrational expression when you drop into your lows, when you drop into your separation points, when you drop into your I'm disconnected from source moments, which you're not, but it perceives to be that because when you're in a higher vibration, you feel so connected. So then when you drop, you feel disconnected. So this lower bandwidth, we'll say, is the number 333. We'll say it's 333 octaves is your lowest bandwidth, but your highest bandwidth is 1111 as your highest capacity with source frequency in your physical form. What will happen is that anything that is above 1111, you will not be able to cognitively make sense of. It doesn't mean it's not truth. It means that your brain cannot actually interpret that information and bring it in the resonance of your body because it's too much for you to comprehend or to make sense of. And so that will be a challenge in the higher octaves, and then in the lower octaves that you can only experience things that are in that lower vibrational state. So your interpretation, anything below that, so if there's something that's in a more lower vibrational expression of, say, a 199 in octave, you won't even have that in your reality because you're risen to a frequency that's too high, that if it was there and you quantum leaped in your frequency, it has to fall away, it has to die. There's absolutely no other way. You either don't rise your frequency, or that thing, whether it be an identity, a relationship, an experience, a land, that dissolves and falls away. There's absolutely no other way to it. So what that that looks like as the land of Bali being a new chakra point. And I believe that Bali is, although it's a heart centered octave, it's actually going to be the new sacral chakra. So I'm not even sure what that means, other than our sacral chakra is evolving into a more loving expression. But that point of the land, and remembering right here, right now, that timelines shift and change, and this is not solidified. So that is a current possibility of the trajectory forward, is that anything within that point of the land will change. Um, that will change. And yes, the earth is moving into the heart octave. So that's what's taking place as human beings. All right. They're coming to a point of heart coherence. Um, Now, you, as the beings that have enough bandwidth of consciousness to even sit and receive this information from me, because you've evolved to that frequency, that there's some part of you that makes sense of it, whether it's your human or the part of you that came down from the stars or beyond to be here, knows this. You know it somewhere within you because you've already come to experience it. So it's not outside of one lens of your bandwidth. Um, is that you will start to see that the bringers of change are getting to the point of time, that they have evolved beyond their contracts, which is where they go into pure creation because they've completed or have decided to be more than what they chose to experience in this incarnation based on choice and creating your own blueprint as you walk it. And there are others that are still in these paradigms that are not choosing the full pure creation of the new earth, but are still a part of our soul family, have their own roles. Maybe they're from the galactic consciousness, from the stars, and there's a point of, I chose to come to the earth to experience this at this point in time. And it might be that I recognize and embody my Andromedan self. It might be that I recognize and embody the fullness of my Trinity. It might be that I recognize and come to the point that I transcend yin and yang and come into divine union. Now, that will allow for a shift in reality to take place on an individual lens, which has a collective whole contribution. Redirecting back to the focus point of Bali. So my journey with Bali was basically deconstructing these false matrix paradigms. I, being a creator of this experience from the very beginning, had a large responsibility to make sure that I deconstructed all of the false matrix paradigms in false light and in patriarchal expressions from my own reality, so that that could ripple through and get to the point of reverse engineering. And so that is what Bali was for me. It was reverse engineering the patriarchal construct that has held me limited as a woman, and offering me as a woman in sovereignty, choosing to rise beyond these constructs to create a new earth, the mirror of seeing the masculine and humanity in a new way, and offering that as a message. Now, Bali and my time there was a lot. There was a lot around the different points of land that I was alchemizing through my own molecular structure, but through the grid lines. And there is a new grid line that is within the earth called the union grids. This is a new grid that was activated when we met the eclipse, and we moved through that shift collectively, and we changed the frequency and opened a new possibility for the earth. We met that in great succession. And there has been massive different ripple effects from that, which is why many people are a little confused around what's coming and where are we going. That those new grids are the grids that we want to be working with. Those are the ones that we want to be receiving from. Those are the ones that we want to allow us to support the new frequency forward and to actually release our attachment to the old grid lines and allow for a new pathway of consciousness, not only through the earth, but that how it affects us in our own physical human experience. So how this land, such as Bali, is beautiful for me, right? Because my main chakra system, the systems, are my crown and my heart. I have a very developed and a highly evolved crown chakra, which is why I can be an oracle. It's why I can see all the puzzle pieces. It's why I can have a direct channel to God Source Creator. It's why I am in the role that I am. I chose in this incarnation to have an extremely evolved crown chakra and also heart. So my crown and my heart are my dominant chakra systems. So the land of Bali was quite supportive for me energetically because it allowed for my heart coherence, my middle center, to be in balance, synergy, and harmony, which meant I was very productive. I didn't need much sleep. I was able to alchemize the distortions that still sat in that octave within my field, these false matrix paradigms around the heart that allowed for a shift in myself and as we mirror each other. Now, the interesting thing about my completion in Bali is currently my guidance is that Bali will be my new home, and I'm working towards relocating there completely and finding a foundational place to stay whilst in between doing land work and global speaking. And so that land is what feels most resonant on the earth for my being at the moment. Now, the funny thing was, as Source guides it, I met up with an individual after being in Bali for just over 2.5 months. And the guidance was go and see this person. And my brain, my human's going into justification. Why? Questioning. Now I've transcended the question, but I've been doing a lot of questioning, which means I've been creating delay points in my own trajectory. Very hard lesson I've learned today in totality to release that default of the brain always wanting to know why, to justify and to explain. And so that templating was dissolved in totality today so that the pure creation can be done. As you receive a download, you receive it. And then if there's something to act, you act in that moment. If there's nothing to act, you just receive it. And then you continue into your next evolutionary point of presence. And then your next evolutionary point. And then your next evolutionary point. And your next experience. And what happens is that when you end up right down the path, you go, that download that I received back there. Oh, there's some information on some inspired action to do now. I didn't have to force myself to create it or do anything or research it or be it because it aligned itself to my vibrational resonance and experience. And so those creations just manifest when we get out of the way. So that was my experience in Bali. I was very much in the resonance of things majority of the time until I could conclude this distortion of my brain. And it wasn't my consciousness, it was my brain's programming. So my brain's programming of the human program, which is we need to justify, know, and seek knowledge of everything and to be in the comfort of the knowing as to why rather than the full acceptance of surrender. And so I was guided to connect with this gentleman. Didn't make sense to me. And I knew very, very quickly because the first question he asked was, what visa did you get? And my story was that I was on a 3-month visa. And I was very attached to that story. It was my truth. It was what I believed to be true and real. And he was a little confused and said he knows a lot about immigration and da 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 da, and that he doesn't know of any 3-month visa. And I'm like, yes, there is a 3 months visa because I'm on it. And me, being me, in that I listened to God, and in every moment I couldn't possibly not be on a 3-month visa, because there was no other possible reality, because I listened to source guidance in every moment, that I couldn't have been on something that wasn't that. And then he's like, maybe you should check. So I pulled it out and I'm like, look, completion date here. Da 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 da. It's like, oh, babe. And he scans it and it's expired 43 days. Now, my first human response was, oh, fuck. I'm an illegal immigrant in a foreign country that I want to live in, right? This is my story. It was my first initial human response. Very quickly was I able to go, hang on, I listened to source guidance in every single moment. So this is exactly how it's supposed to be. What is it that, you know, like what, I'm clearly meant to be here for a reason. I would like some awareness as to why I overstayed my visa. Now, this was a lesson of initiation. And the lesson of initiation was that you are not sitting with your guided messages. You're not listening deeply enough. You're listening enough, but you're not listening deeply enough to self in every moment. You're actually pulling away from the information once you have the justification of what I just spoke to to move beyond that. Now I get very clear directives. Like I don't get a just go here. I get a 15, 30-minute, sometimes hour directive of completely source guided message, right? So at times my humans like, oh, do we have to sit here? Let's just receive what we need to, but not listening to the subtleties, right? The subtleties of when that message has completely come to its resolution and its completion. And so the message was, you didn't ask or sit in why you needed to be in Bali to the totality. You didn't receive exactly where and what the guidance was in each point. And you have the ability to do so. You have the ability to receive in these moments when you get these little whispers, to sit into the fullness of it. And so what it was that had I have done the actual visa, uh, the way that their structures are in the government, I would have only been there for 2 months, and then I would have moved on to my next location, because I wouldn't have done a border run and gone back for a very short period of time. And so the way that my guidance was that you needed to be there for an extra 3 weeks, and so everything lined it up. And I'm talking many conversations with people that no one, even the airport people that I showed my visa and showed my flight out, didn't say anything. So it was very much guided by God. That this 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 moment of, okay, beautiful, amazing, you are showing me that I was listening. I went through it in a way that, because of the amount of listening, right? So your higher self, your source guidance will speak to you in a way you'll listen, in a way that you will receive. Doesn't mean that it's the ease and grace path, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the path that is most synergized to your being. It's the path that's going to get you to the point that you need to recognize yourself, or be at the trajectory point that you need to be to complete whatever it is that you're creating from your higher expression, to bring in whatever it is that you're here to do. So this is is the way that you will receive messages, until you say, okay, I'm ready to receive the truth, only the truth, and make a declaration. I will only receive the truth. I will not receive my higher self's manipulation. I will not be detoured into things to find contrast to see myself. I choose a path, no matter how uncomfortable it is, to see the truth, so I can line up to that and to allow that to unfold. And so this journey was, okay, wow, I've overstayed my visa for 42 days, which is a $4,200 fine, which had its own beautiful gift. I was like, huh, there was no trigger, there was no worry. It was more a, right, okay, that was a very expensive extra 3 week stay to do some land work and to receive some codes and to change some consciousness within myself and within the collective. And the answer that I got was, why are you even thinking about money? It will come back 40-fold. And it was this awareness that we project stories and we create interpretations, and our human is designed to do that until we rewire the brain's neurology so it does it differently, because that's what we're completing. We're completing this out of our experience so that our brain can just receive source guidance and act on it in truth. So I booked a flight because I didn't really want to pay anymore. And it felt true, right? The guidance was, yes, okay, we need to book a flight and leave the country. It all worked out. My accommodation was finishing that day. I actually had written in my diary that I needed to go to immigration about my visa. So I did go to immigration around my visa. This is what's fascinating about when you say or you receive information, how it shows up in a lens that you didn't know that it was going to show up because of however much your bandwidth is, however much your receiving was. My receiving at that point, I actually didn't have a high enough receiving. It was the lesson to coming into the full receiving and stability of that. So I ended up in a very beautiful, the funniest thing around that was that that day before I knew about this visa was that a brother from Phuket, Thailand had messaged me and said, hey, think you should come to Thailand. And I was like, not really being guided there. Don't feel the resonance in my body. But we'll see. Wherever source guides me, I'll go. And so the source guidance ended up being come to Phuket, Thailand. So I ended up here, and I sat with the newly integrated lesson of when source guides sit with the directive of why you're going. On the plane, I sat with and received the full directive of why I was here in the depths until the message was completed, until it dissipated, and I was complete. And I left it, and I didn't really think about it too much until it started to come into my awareness. And this journey here in Thailand was very different to my Bali experience. So, my Bali experience was alchemizing and upgrading my heart. The message that I got was I was going through a sacral upgrade and I was going to connect to more sexuality coding, to more of Aphrodite's sexual current and the Shakti current, and connecting into different dragon energies of the earth, all of which I've done, not in the way that my human would have perceived it was going to happen. Not at all in the way my human would perceived it was going to happen. Um, and so, although I was in trust and surrender the entire time, it has been a very gnarly experience because the land here of Phuket, where I am specifically, is more of a pelvis root chakra land. It is too low in vibration for me as a human being to function. It does not work with my productivity. It does not work with my ability to move my body. It does not work with my ability to channel messages in more ease and grace in a consistent way. It does not allow for me to have enough energy in between being of service and to other and service to self. So what happened? I've been in service to other, but very little service to self other than sleeping and recalibrating and recuperating. So what happens when you go to a land that's not supportive to your being? All of your stuff comes up, right? If you go into the density, it's like going into descension. I went into land that descended me into the threads that were still missing in a more uncomfortable way, in a way that it was in my forefront. Oh, you've missed a little thread here and a little thread here and a little thread here. How are you going to anchor your Christos if you've still got this debris in the way? And so, this initiation, actually, I will go back into that. How are you going to anchor your Christos or whatever energy you're currently working on with the debris in the way. So anchoring, it doesn't matter how many activations you do, it doesn't matter how many quantum journeys you do, it doesn't matter how many healings you do. If you're not equally working on your human being to allow that integration through cognitive thought, through practice of looking after your human being, through walking the path where you have you're human. This has been a very big reflection in the last few weeks, is a lot of people don't know they're human. They don't even know their circadian rhythm. They're not in flow with their circadian rhythm. They're not designing their life around their circadian rhythm. They don't know what it is that uh, what it is that triggers them. They don't know how to self-soothe themselves. They don't know what patterns of behavior they have that come up that are based on either supporting, nurturing, or from a place of suppression and bypassing. They don't know that their human has certain values and desires, and that their human needs are just important as their spiritual needs. There is not one before the other. And if you get too stuck in the human, you're going to go down the path of dissension into a point of being stuck in the 7 deadly sins and finding yourself through the mud constantly. And if you are bypassing your human and you're too far in the galactic and the higher self consciousness and the zoomed out lens, then you're going to end up ascending and then plummeting. And you can continue these highs and lows, highs and lows. If you are someone who's very focused on your human, you're going to seek pleasure. You're going to seek the materialistic. You're going to seek physical experiences to make you feel loved, whole, and worthy. If you're too focused on your multidimensional, you actually disassociate from your human being, and you are unable to bridge the gap and come into the connection point internally, which will gift you the truth of who you are. And so this beautiful opportunity for me, being on this land that I will not visit again because it is not supportive to my being, but it was supportive for me to bring up what was needed for my Christos anchoring, which completed today. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Is that there were things in my field, because I've already worked on my consciousness, my body, my spirit. I've worked on my auric field. I've worked on my Taurus field. But that field of what you can consider the I am, to the very, 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 very edges, wherever that is for you, that separation point between you and other, you and the world, you and God, where that really truly dissolves, where I can go, I am you and you are me. And I know that, and I see that, and I am that, and I believe that, because I can see exactly what you are is exactly what I am. That's that point. Now, when that dissolves, and all of the things that were in the way that conditioned the human being to think they were something other than that, then you have enough space and clarity and purity to allow that Christos to be anchored. But the anchoring process still requires a guided expression to anchor a frequency in. Just because it's activated, just because you can hold it, just because you can be it, you have to be able to be stabilized in it. You have to be able to hold it consistently without fragmentation. And I could not do that with the Christos energy. It was coming through as I was anointing brothers and sisters around the world that are at specific locations, that are helping the earth structure and this unity consciousness field become that of a true Christ opportunity for this next wave, which is the Great Awakening. That is the Christos energy, where there will be a point of time where there will be enough individuals that have chosen this consciousness that it becomes that of a remembered aspect of self. And there will be a moment of that awakening. Now, that's what happens when enough beings choose it individually, recognizing that we are not separate, we are actually one. And there is a ripple effect. And that ripple effect is a mass waking up, beyond the seventh chakra into the Christ consciousness attained, held, and being here now. So anchoring to stabilize a energy or a remembrance, that can take you years depending on what's in the way. It can take you a long period of time. Now, my Kundalini, when that activated, it took me, I will say, close to 5 years to anchor that energy in, where the Kundalini runs through me and ripples through me all of the time, in every moment. It's always active, up and down, in all directions. And even when I'm not in direct channel, it's there, it's present. That I don't have those same rushes of Kundalini like I used to, where I was in sexual bliss, because I live in bliss. Now that's integration, that's solidification, that isness, that's the isness of Kundalini. Now, for the anchoring process, you've got to move through the things, the density or the lower vibrational frequencies that are in the way for you anchoring these higher expressions into your being. So what was required for me to anchor, because I started doing the anointments in Bali, I started having Yeshua come through me and anoint men, and I was using the Christos Isis coding and frequency to anoint. It's not anointing for men, women. To purify and to awaken woman, is that there, I'm not sure why anointing doesn't resonate for women, but I'm very curious to know that, so I will channel that at some point. I'm like, that's interesting. But using these two versions of the masculine divine union Christos and the feminine divine union Christos in my work, I was only able to hold that for a session because it was so much on my physical body. When I was in some of these frequencies, depending on the voltage of the other person receiving and how clear their channel was, if I was working with someone who had a really clear channel, then it was much easier because we were working together to bring that energy through. But if I was working with someone who was deciding to quantum leap into that remembrance or to go into an activation, it might take them years to ground in, but they were anointed with that frequency. So now they know it, they hold it. That I was, at times, my brain wanted to completely glitch out and go to sleep. It was fatigued. I was not able to hold it. My body was like, oh my God, right? I was doing my absolute best not to go into the oh my God and doing this. But I was not holding it to the capacity. Now, if this is a part of my path and purpose is to gift the Christos frequency out, then I got to hold it. I have to know that when I have an opportunity in front of a large group of people and that source guides me to bring through Christos because that's what the crowd is asking for, that I can hold that and I don't kill myself. Combust from the inside out, right? Or that I'm able to actually, and that's very true and real. That's a circuitry piece that can happen with conduits. Like that's not a story. And I have combusted in past incarnations, not on Earth, but when I had overdone my capacity and overstretched my vessel's ability. So for me, this integration has been now integration, depending on what you're integrating, will mean different things. It might be looking at belief systems. It might be learning to breathe it into your cells. It might be telling your brain that it's safe to use this frequency. It may be letting go of the story that's preventing it from landing in your body. It might be exactly what I did, which was spend 24 hours in a shamanic sleep state journey for the last period of my time here in bed, where my higher self and other energies and source recalibrated my body so I could hold it. And then I came out of it and did a short process to ensure that all of the circuitry was completely integrated and anchored. Integration or stabilizing doesn't actually have to be as challenging as what we make it out to be. Sometimes it's just focusing on not allowing ourselves to fragment out of it. And so that will be different for each individual. And just because you've met a state of consciousness doesn't mean that you are that state of consciousness, right? I remember receiving my Christos a long time ago. Well, it feels like a long time ago. It was many past lives ago. What was it in actual human time? 2.5 years ago. So 2.5 years ago, I was anointed by Yeshua and received this energy from him. And it's taken me 2.5 years to move through it and to integrate it into my field. Now, um, there is a lot more opportunity for this because there are more people choosing this. So it might not take the person 2.5 years. This is something that I know. The things that took me months or years to do, I'm seeing happen in a much more accelerated rate. And that's beautiful. But that's the current cycle that we're on. And so the cycle we're on is the closing out of the old, and the thinning of the veil is very thin at the moment. So there's an opportunity to jump on the bandwagon and to go with that wave of frequency. It's like seeing this point where we start to basically the tethering point, and it becomes very rapid. And that's what we're going through, is this rapid acceleration until there's a 0 point there. And we're not going to stay in the 0 point. Somebody's going to pick it up and it's going to start swinging again. That's cycles. That's life. It would just be the swing from a different lens, perspective, and consciousness at that point. Now, where this is really interesting is that this land is not supportive of me, but it doesn't mean Thailand's land is not supportive to me. So I've been guided to go to Copenhagen, where there is crystalline quartz. Now, I already know how supportive crystalline quartz is for my body. That's my home energy. When I am around crystalline clear quartz, I am home. And so there's a real beauty in the excitement for that. Not preconceiving where I'm going or what I'm doing, but I can already feel it. I can already sense it. I feel it in my body. There's excitement to return home, whatever turbulence and whatever things happen in that process. There's a level of purity that I know that is going to be fully met in my external mirrors. And that is beautiful, because this land has met its turbulence for me. It's been a lesson. It's been, okay, you needed to come here so you could get the stuff out of the way because it's time. And now this cycle has closed and I'm entering a new cycle. And this land is not a land that will support me more. Now, why I'm saying that, why I know I won't be coming back to this land unless it drastically shifts, right, is that my bandwidth has increased so much that it is uncomfortable for my physical body to be here. This is where realities start to show you that when you choose a reality, those other things that used to be in your reality can no longer be there. People, things, thoughts, identities, experiences. When you choose to vibrate higher, anything below this point cannot experience within there. So this land, I am going to a point, I'm only going to continue to have a higher vibration. It's already painful on my body. I can physically feel my shoulders getting pulled down into the earth. It is not somewhere that is loving and gentle for me. And I'm quite excited that I came and learned what I needed to learn through my source guidance to go through it. Could have I done it a different way? Absolutely. If I had have received the guidance that anchoring my Christos was important for me back in a more supportive land, I probably would have experienced in a much more guided way. But I wasn't asking for the full directive of information back then, was I? And I wasn't catching all of that information, because the more awareness that you have, the more information you have coming through your brain. It's not quiet. It is, but it also isn't. I don't have monkey mind. I don't have overthinking thoughts. I don't repetitively loop on anything, but I have more and more information come through my brain's neurology in guidance that sometimes I'm like, I was, Bariata Kariana. During Bali, there was a part of me that just wanted to be human and have a reprieve. So that was the main reason why I missed the information. So that was another journey of self realizing the self more of, okay, you got to merge spirit and human and allow myself, yes, I did need a reprieve, and it's okay that I missed the directive in the fullness. I still met every junction point, but I didn't meet it in the way that I would like to meet it now that I have this awareness. So thanks, human, I love you, let's hang out together, let's do it together. And now I don't have to uh, uh, go through the gnarly initiation. Instead, I could choose on a land that is more vibrational what is coming through, so I can do it there in a place that is supportive to my journey. So, what is it that you currently are not meeting in what would be more supportive to your journey? Where are you choosing the hard way? Where are you choosing the contrast? Where are you choosing some level of rapid expansion through this expression so that you're unable to meet it in a more synergistic, harmonious way? Now, we all have choice. I've chosen the gnarly way my entire life, and I am stepping out of that more and more and more and more and more. And I have completed that in totality. Oh, yeah, that makes me happy. Just going to do like a little spirit dance. 1111. Oh, that's good. Love that. Confirmation. Um, is that I have stepped out of that old paradigm of seeing thyself through yin and yang, which is what this past human experience has been since the beginning of the Earth's creation, into unity learning. So I'm choosing to see myself through the unified self. That I don't know what that is. I've never experienced that before. This is blank slate, new relationships, new friendships, new sense of feeling, new expressions of body, new, it's all new. It's so new that it is different, and it's a little weird for the for like anything. It's change is uncomfortable because you're like, I know this is good, but I don't actually know where I'm going, what I'm doing. What is this? Right? So, this new, completely out of all karmic paradigms, in complete, clean, brand new slate, Christos energy, new earth structure, that is what I'm walking into, have already, I'm standing in and about to take my next step. My first step, my first step into this new earth creation, because I tend to do things a little before the collective in that way, so I can create a synapses pathway and go, don't worry, guys, I'll work through the resistance, in which I am no longer choosing. I'm choosing that we do it together. And so it's not harder for any leaders, right? There's a group of leaders that we're all doing it together, which means that we do not have to push. We don't have to have one that's pushing against to create the new synapses pathways. We're doing it in unity. That is what the new earth is about. That means that it's more ease and grace for everyone. So, in reflection of my story, as to why I'm here and where I'm going. Okay, actually, let's see where I'm going and why I'm going to Copenhagen, because I haven't received my directive yet, but it's coming through. Okay. um, uh, there is a specific, very large crystal within the earth that requires the Christos coding. So that's a big part of why I'm there, which makes sense. So that Christos coding needs to be injected into that quartz crystal and sent through the different junction points. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pathways that it moves out of, to deliver that to different points on the land that I have yet to experience, connect with, that I don't have direct pillars of light that I'm working with or in resonance with, so that information can move through there, as well as connect to different junction points where others are working with this energy, so that there's a higher voltage of this frequency that creates a more clear pathway through the earth grids to support this shift in consciousness and this new pathway forward. I am also going through a shift in my third eye chakra, an upgrade in my prophetic vision, my visionary skills, and my oracle information. And this land will specifically allow for the vibrational frequency as well as the beings that I will interconnect with, that will allow for the coding to be activated and upgraded and allow for a broader interpretation of the visionary aspect and channel of information to come through in a clear, concise way, in a way that is of vibrational alignment to the 13th octave of samadhi, anchored into the verbalization of message delivery. So just want to bring note to those two directives that you heard me speak out aloud and now are witness of, that also get to receive this through your own interpretation and your own lens, because you are a mirror of me and we are working on this together regardless, whatever it has for you. Is that when I received the directive and it came to a completion point, you felt that energy, you saw it if your eyes were open and they're not closed, through my body. My body opened, it released the distortion that was in the way of lining up to that frequency or that lower vibrational energy. I'm not even going to call it a distortion. It was just the energy that was not in vibrational synergistic alignment or resonance was able to be released to allow that in. That there are specific soul community and opportunities to create temple spaces based on new levels of Christos mergence with tantric expression for Kundalini. Well, see, that's probably why Kundalini activations have come back into my field. Stop trying to interpretate the message, Geeia. And that there is a connection point with multiple beings, whether or not they be there to assist in this creation or to gift the vibrational resonance and the activation of templating to be gifted on to another being that chooses to bring these sacred temples in their higher evolved expression of the golden Kundalini current, not being that of the white or the red rose, but an evolved expression of temple practice arts that is of a clearer nature for those that are desiring to connect with self, other, and God in Christos in the purity of sacred sexuality. And the final piece that we will share in exposure and witness of those that are in this space is the internal state of being that I will vibrate and resonate to is one of the Bariata kerea shato koreanda yana ya kerea to koya shata kiandi di ikerea takarianda yana okoyanda yana. Wow. Okay. Mia ashata yana. The inner vibratory resonance of the stream of consciousness that I be will be at the interpretation of the Council of One, integrated into the consciousness ability to communicate at that lens of perspective of multiple lenses of truth to express a more holistic lens of consciousness through self-realization, in the recognition that the beings or the energy signatures that have made the council of one up that has been communicated with is not separate from you. They are you. Ah. My brain's a little tweaky from that. So this is one of the other really interesting things about as you continue to grow and evolve, is that you realize that your guides are you. You realize that those galactic beings that you thought was a guide that came, the same guide that comes all the time, that feels really beautiful and has a specific energetic resonance and that you know is safe and that is not tricking you, is you. You just haven't met the point of dividing yourself or releasing the separation point so that you can come into integrating into the I am of that. And so when I first started receiving channeled information, I sat down. I had no idea what I was doing at all, whatsoever. I had never had read anything about channeling. I grew up with a mum that said channeling is bad. Don't channel. You'll channel entities and demons. Um, and so there was a fear programmed in me to not be myself from the very beginning, which most of us have in whatever lens that is. And so I couldn't even call it channeling. I got given by my higher self that you are transcribing light into tangible thought, which is true. However, from the human lens, to make sense of what I do, I tell people I channel. But it's not really channeling because it's just meeting a higher expression of myself or a larger larger bandwidth of information through something that is considered outside of the self, within the self, through the self. All right. What was I trying to say? The very first time that I connected was actually because I had gone through a very, very intense initiation. And the initiation started because I asked, in this journey, I asked, what is it that I'm here for? God, I want to know my purpose. I want to know my purpose because I don't want to keep living without a purpose in life, right? So I was desperate and I wanted to know and I was willing to see whatever it was. I also asked what all my gifts were. And then I asked what my past life memory was. And I'm a pretty good manifester. So when I wrote my intention down and I wrote it in Dear God Source Creator, in the name of all that is light and the frequency of all that I am, please show me. And I didn't ask for ease and grace. I didn't know some of these things, right? Was whoopsie moments. Me, X, Y, and Z, da 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 da. And in the power of all that is, so it is done, right? And I had this very strong intention and I went into a ceremony and I definitely received it all very quickly, very fast, and really, really hard for my human brain to make sense of because I had no idea before this point around any of these concepts. In anything other than I might have heard my mum talk about when I was younger, and I never believed. And that took me, I never had sung light language or anything before, and all I could do was sing this light language and code. And from my human, this was what was powerful about it, was I could feel my human. And my human felt like the most dense thing I'd ever experienced in my body. It was so grating and so painful to hear. I could barely speak it. But when I did, I was like, in my own body. My human was like so dense. And then I went into the channeled expression of communication, where I sat for 2.5 hours channeling through the postures and the activation points to unlock the body into the infinite nature of self. These are postures and activation points that, when done with sound and vibration, unlock us into a transcended state. Now, this information is something that I haven't been able to gift out to the world, but it's a part of the modality that I'm creating and bringing to the world. Now, that postures, activation points, and sound is a mixture of Tantra, it's a mixture of yoga, it's a mixture of acupuncture, it's a mixture of self-awareness and meditation, and it's a holistic practice that simply the world is not ready for, and I am not either at the moment, um, which is being truthful with your current reality. What is your current reality? What is supportive to your current reality? How do you anchor in what you already have? um, so this experience sent me into actually receiving, and some of the first messages I ever received was so, and it was like human, so low grading, couldn't be in my own human, into this transcribing by word that came in this European accent, that I was like, well, I know that's not me because I don't speak like that. I'm an Aussie bogan. Right? And then these really high frequencies of song and sound and code that I was like, just felt like home, right? I didn't want to go back to any of those other ones. I actually wanted to stay there. Now, I didn't know what I'd experienced. I didn't know what light language was. I didn't know what soul song was. I didn't know any of those things. And I just knew that I'd unlocked something freaking profound. And I knew it with every cell of my body and being, and that this information made sense. Information like something that I still want to share. And if you saw the video recently, and I will just put a little splash of, there was a really beautiful conversation between me and Nikolai around real relating, which was an accidental podcast. And it was really beautiful to share a conversation that we were just having as a Zoom call chat, and then ended up being something that we could share as education. But what was really powerful is the reason that me and Nikolai connected was we wanted to have this exact conversation, which was around mental health, or special needs, and what that truly really is. And what I was shown in some of these things was some of those pieces. Tourette's, for instance, was one of the first messages that came through. That Tourette's is actually a conduit whose circuitry system is glitching, and they're unable to actually express their channeled information because there's too much circuitry mutation, right? So a tick is not a tick. A tick is a circuitry point of connection of a gift that has been unplugged and doesn't work properly because the energy is not moving through the body in the way that it's supposed to be moved. Now, that would change a lot of people's lives. That's huge. Can you imagine these people that have stutters, these people that have these points of uncontrollable energy, and through word or through energy expression in their body knew that it was just circuitry realignment? Like, that's pretty powerful. And so what I was shown was all of these different things that I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I could feel the resonance in my body. I just knew it was true. There was no part of me that couldn't see that. And that was the first opening I had. It was 3 hours of intense information coming into my being, that I couldn't not speak to my dog in light language for 4 days. I could speak to my humans in human with random bursts of light language, but my dog I could only speak in code to. Now, turns out she's a Lyran being that is no longer on the planet, but she was from Lyra, so I was speaking Lyran to her and I didn't even know. And she responded far better than any of my English conversations to her. She was super telepathic, to the point that I did not make that connection to the capacity I could have. And Source was always like, you're underestimating her. Listen. She was such a powerful contribution to healings, to medicine journeys, to So telepathic, always there to help. She was in service. And oh, oh, Sachi, I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you taught me. Oh, yata yata kariate keriandeanaya shete keriatokuena. And so that interpretation, right? So because I was receiving this English, like this is what Tourette's is, and this is what this is, and this is what this is, and my mind's going at the same time, and then coming out of that, not knowing what to do with it, but just knowing that when I would see people like Basha, or I would see people like Abraham Hicks, I was like, that's going to be me, isn't it? I don't know if I want to be that, right? Did not want to be that. No way did I want to be that. I spent my whole life running away from spirituality. I did not want to be that woo-woo person on a stage. Did not want to be that woo-woo person on a stage. And so I pushed away from it for as long as I could until my human experience, and this is how I've learned, gave me enough contrast and enough realization that I was ready. And so I sat down. I hadn't experienced it since. So this is a part of integration. That was the activation. The activation was a huge, huge activation, but it was an activation. And then I sat down and I was like, I've done it once. I'm sure I can do it again. And I didn't know what I was doing at all. I just sat there with the intention of, I'm going to access this profound wisdom. And 45 minutes it took me to write 2 paragraphs, very small paragraphs, mind you, where I got one word at a time. So I was just sitting there. I'd practiced no mind. I got really good at meditation of no mind. I could have stayed in no mind forever. It would have been great. That is your monk mode, right? Monk mode is only one level of samadhi. That's no mind, void. You have to go beyond that. So beyond the no mind, was sitting in no mind until I heard the word, and the word came through, and I would write it down. And then I would sit down and I would write it down. And then I would write it down. I had no idea what I was writing. I couldn't pre-perceive it. I wasn't reading it because it took me so much focus to get the word that if I was going to read what I was writing, I would have been out of the flow that came through. So I wrote it down, and it was the most profound thing that I'd ever read. And it came through me, and I knew that it was not me, but it was me. I didn't know that it was me, but I knew that that level of infinite intelligence that came through and spoke this information was a profound gift, and it excited me. It actually really fed my intellectual mind. So I am super intellectual. I love learning about the human psyche. That's my thing. Which makes sense because I have a beautiful connection to Ninasag, who was the master geneticist that created the human brain of the fifth dimensional vessel of that which we call the human being on this planet. So it makes sense why I was so fascinated by my own interpretations and information. Um, and I just sat and I cultivated that connection over and over and over again. And what happens when you allow yourself to receive insight from within yourself is you don't even need to dissolve or fix anything, because that vibration simultaneously dissolves it. And that was all that I ever got from this, was that I don't actually have to do anything when I'm in direct channel. When I allow myself to be in direct presence with God Source Creator, everything else aligns itself to that. And that the interpretation of the information is able to recalibrate the circuitry system without focusly directing yourself to do that. It happens simultaneously, as there's no separation point. And the body has the ability and the capacity to move with the frequency because the brain is not getting in the way. The sound mind is that of the source connection in its holistic totality, without the division point or the interpretation of the human brain or that of the separate mind that creates a point of separation which does not allow for instantaneous healing. Now, to further express that, I do what is my current capacity of direct channeling. 42%. So I'm aware that my physical human being only can direct channel 42%. So the rest of the time, I actually have to go the long way around, which is still not very long compared to some people, but I still have the separation point of the receiving of the channel through my human interpretation. At one point, sometime down the future, I will be the walking, talking channel without any separation point, and I will just be sound mind. That is exciting. But it's also realistic that I'm not there yet. I'm at some point of attainment, samadhi, and I am in the pure presence of creation, but there is also an awareness that I am not walking, talking God. And that's okay too. My neuro pathways are at capacity. I love you so much. I hope you enjoyed this story and all of the layers and information as to why I went to Bali, why and how I ended up in Thailand, and where I'm going, so that you can also watch the unfoldings of that transmission of information, of directive, and how it comes forth and through. You might see it before I do. I love, love, love you. If you liked this transmission, please like, subscribe, and share with anyone who may desire to receive all of the frequencies that are within this and the mirrors to that which is you. And that is all. I love you.